The truth occurs.
Hi everyone. So the Mayan calendar and December 21st, 2012. What's the deal with this? Are we all gonna die? Well, that's what I'm gonna try to address today. First, I'd like to let you know that I have a radio show on American Freedom Radio, which is now on Friday nights from 10 to midnight Eastern Standard Time. And this Friday, I'll be joined from 10 to 11 by Linda West, who wrote the book Ultimate Power, The Use of Frequency Attunement. She's known as Morning Mayan here on YouTube. And we're going to be talking about the Mayan calendar and frequency attunement. And from 11 to midnight, I'll be joined by Jim Vieira. And he recently gave a talk at a TEDx conference called Stone Builders, Mound Builders, and Giants of Ancient America. So I hope you'll be able to join us for that radio show on AmericanFreedomRadio.com this Friday from 10 to midnight. And please don't forget to rate my video, favorite it, and comment on it. And please subscribe to my channel. I put out news videos every week and a comedy video every weekend. So what's the deal with December 21st, 2012? Well, a lot of people are concerned about it. A lot of people are kind of panicking about it. Some are even considering suicide. Meanwhile, NASA, trying to dispel the fear, is just saying, don't worry about it. But can we really trust NASA? I don't know. So I've been doing quite a bit of research on this Mayan calendar thing, including reading a book called The Mayan Ourobouros by Melchidezek, by Drunvalo Melchidezek. Hard to say that name. But this book was written by him according to what he was told by the Mayas directly. So it's kind of like the Mayas actually speaking about 2012, the significance of it, and what the Mayan prophecies are. So I've created this little visual aid behind me to hopefully be able to break this down in a way that will be easy to digest. So first of all, the time that we live in is a time of high technology. If this represents 4,000 years ago and this represents about 1900, you see there's a big rise in technology in the last 100 or so years, and at this point it's basically going up in a straight line. Now here I've mentioned the Vedas, the Mayans, and the Hopi. According to the 6,000-year-old Sanskrit text of the Vedas, they actually predicted this time in which we'd have a lot of physical technology. And they even spoke of us flying around in airplanes, basically, not in exactly those words, but it amounted to that. And what they say is that we will give it up in a single day. So something big will happen and everything will change. Now the Mayans don't regard advanced physical technology as a sign of an advanced civilization. They regard the presence of this kind of technology as a sign of a civilization that is about to be advanced. Also, the Hopi, according to the Maya, are actually relatives of the Maya, that they didn't come down through the Bering Strait, they came up from South America. So there's a relationship between the Hopi and the Maya and between their prophecies. So now here what I have is, this represents, each one of these represents one Mayan long count calendar. And this represents what's called the precession of the equinoxes. The long count lasts 5,125 years each. And the precession of the equinoxes lasts 25,625 years. And it is only at one point, once every 25,625 years, that they line up perfectly. And this is what is expected to happen on the 21st of December, is the alignment of the start/end point of the long count calendar and the start/end point of the precession of the equinoxes. Now up here, this is about the Hopi prophecy. The Hopi talked about the coming of the blue and the red star, also known as the Kachinas. And the blue Kachina, the blue star here, marks the beginning of the end of time window. And it is possible that this blue star was actually the comet Holmes. It was a small comet that came into our atmosphere and then exploded on October 24th, 2007. And when it did, it actually was larger physically in the sky than our sun would be. So it's possible that the comet Holmes, which was blue, was that blue star marking the end of time window beginning on that day. Now the red star marks the end of time. And I've written Betelgeuse here because Betelgeuse is a star that is on the belt of Orion, which has been imploding for quite some time. After it's done imploding, it's expected to explode, and apparently we here on Earth will feel the effect of this explosion, and it is expected to happen at any minute now. So this may be the red star. Now what this represents is the Earth's magnetosphere. So the Earth is sending this magnetic energy out, and it's coming back in, and it usually follows this kind of a pattern. Now what's been happening is that the Earth has been losing its geomagnetic field, and instead of it going out and coming back in a different place, what's happening is on the poles, this is going out and coming back in the same place. And scientists believe that if this continues, at some point the Earth would lose its geomagnetic field completely. Okay, now how does Edgar Cayce come into this? Well, Edgar Cayce predicted a physical pole shift at some point after 1998. He actually gave a specific location, which was in Siberia, about 16 degrees from where it is now. Now what would precede a physical pole shift would be first a magnetic pole shift. And as the magnetic field has been weakening, this could be leading up for a situation where this would actually be possible. The field has been weakening increasingly, starting about 2,000 years ago. It started to weaken. About 500 years ago, this sped up. And in the last 40 years, it's been speeding up even more. And some believe that this has everything to do with why there have been whales and other fish beaching themselves and dying in mass numbers, because they lose their sense of direction, because they function partly on this magnetic system. Also, because of this, aeronautical maps have had to be changed quite a few times over the last few years. Now in 2009, scientists warned of an imminent magnetic pole reversal, not just a shift, but a full reversal. The last one was about 13,000 years ago. According to the Maya, this is when Atlantis was lost. The Maya believed that they are descendants of the Atlanteans, and that when this happened, they jumped into their boats, and that's how they ended up in South America. So the Maya fled the last time this happened. Now up here I wrote down Schumann resonance. Now I'm going to read you how Wikipedia defines Schumann resonance. A set of spectrum peaks in the extremely low frequency portion of the Earth's electromagnetic field spectrum. Global electromagnetic resonances excited by lightning discharges in the cavity formed by the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. Now I don't really understand that too well, but what I do understand is that the frequency has been changing. It was very stable at about 7.86 hertz and has slowly risen in the last few years to 13 hertz. And apparently, for some reason, the government's trying to cover that up. Now, the Maya expect there to be a pole shift in the end of time window. And it's expected that the Earth will actually shift on its axis. Now, normally this wouldn't be possible for the Earth to shift on its axis. It has a crust, and then it has the upper mantle, which is 100 to 200 kilometers thick. And normally it wouldn't be able to shift. However, if the geomagnetic field goes to zero, this upper mantle would turn to liquid in 2 to 3 weeks. So the Earth's crust would be sitting on liquid and then would be able to freely move. Now, what would also cause this would be the imbalance of the distribution of ice on the polar caps. Most of the ice is on the South Pole, and only a small amount of it, proportionately, is on the North Pole. So now let's say that the Earth loses its geomagnetic field, the upper mantle turns to liquid, then this imbalance in weight could cause the entire crust to shift. And this has, I think, happened before. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but there was a case where they found a baby mammoth frozen in, I think it was Antarctica or Siberia. Anyhow, it was frozen, but it had buttercups in its stomach, which showed that it had its last meal in a warm climate where buttercups would grow, and then was suddenly flash frozen. So maybe some kind of shift happened really fast. So in conclusion, if this happens, you might want to get ready to move. So what else is going to happen on the big day? Well, as you see, though, there is an end of time window and then the end of time. And even though this alignment happens on the 21st, it may not be exactly on that day that all this occurs. We don't really know. But there seem to be a lot of things pointing to something, leading up to something very big. I mean, I tried to put the stuff here that was just as scientific as possible and leaving out any kind of ESP and alien stuff, but just like the hard facts. And when I'm looking at this, what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of stuff going on that I wouldn't say hasn't happened before. It has happened before, but it hasn't happened for a very long time. And in the past, it was associated with the kind of cataclysm. So what can we expect when this end of time comes, according to the Mayan and Hopi prophecy? Well, for one, some say 3 days of darkness. 3 days of darkness, although the Maya say it's more like 30 hours, where it would be so dark that you wouldn't even be able to see the stars, which is not really possible unless the darkness is because you can't see. So some say that what actually is going to happen is that we're all going to go blind for 30 hours to maybe 30 days. And this has something to do with what's going on with the Earth on a magnetic level and how that affects our brains. And the most important message here from the Maya is, don't freak out or you will die. Now imagine if there was a pole reversal, a pole shift, the crust is moving. You can imagine you might end up in a totally different place. There'd probably be a lot of earthquakes, a lot of natural disasters. And on top of it, nobody can see a thing. You can imagine the chaos. And this is what the Maya expect. Violence, chaos, and change brings about the birth of a new cycle. And actually, the Bible also talks about that. I see a lot of parallels between this and what the Bible talks about. Although I'm still waiting to see the mark of the beast. I'm just hanging on, saying no, we're not in the tribulation yet, because we don't have the mark of the beast system. So I don't know. Maybe it'll be a few years. Maybe it'll be longer. Then there was also that guy from NASA who said that NASA has been in touch. Like, he was defecting and whistleblowing, obviously, but he said that NASA has actually been in touch with aliens for 15 years, and they've been sending one message back and forth per year, and that 2012 apocalypse is real, but it's not going to happen in 2012. It's going to be more like 2015 or 2016. So I'm hearing a lot of things saying that, you know, we're going into some kind of period of like tribulation. I don't know if it's the biblical tribulation, but something like that. And the Maya also say, though, that following this, this will lead to evolution of our consciousness, higher consciousness. And interestingly, they say also that we will be then led by the female, whereas now it's really a male-dominated world. This goes in cycles, male, and then when that kind of falls apart and becomes corrupted, then the female will take over. And so we're going to have a whole new cycle in our existence. So look, absolute worst case scenario, all this stuff happens and we end up with 3 days of darkness. But remember, don't freak out. Best case scenario, I wouldn't say that they're wrong. I really don't think that the Mayans were wrong. I think that they know what they're talking about when it comes to astronomy and this kind of stuff. Best case scenario, we got a few more years, I guess. Anyway, I'm not going to, you know, jump off a bridge, or I don't recommend that anybody do anything rash like that. And I think, you know, you should take the advice of the Maya. They said, don't freak out. Everything will return to normal. So, you know, keep the faith and try to stay cool and don't freak out. And if you want to know more about this, don't forget to tune in on Friday to my radio show, The Truth of Girls, on American Freedom Radio from 10 to midnight with Linda West and Jim Vieira. Thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.
Truth the girls.